Hello everyone and welcome back to Next Gen Gaming SC. Josh Snyder here, and we are set to kick off some more coverage from SCG CON Atlanta. We have the round 2 feature match from the Saturday 2K tournament. Ian on the left piloting Han Yellow, and then we have Gene on the right piloting Jango Tarkentown. Ian is a former SCG CON champion. He won the Baltimore 2K tournament last year at SCG CON Baltimore. We did coverage of that event here on the channel. If you want to attend one of these SCG CON events, the next one coming up is going to be SCG CON Portland from February 7th through the 9th. You can go to scgcon.starcitygames.com to get the full schedule and information of these events. But starting out here in Game 1, Ian with the initiative playing C3PO, and with the win plate ability chooses 3. And he's going to get a card. Millennium Falcon was on top, so card advantage early for C3PO. And Gene follows up with the Crafty Smuggler. Ian was able to retain the initiative. So we saw Ian getting that early card advantage off of C3PO. 24 of the 50 card main deck for Ian are cards that cost 3. So when C3PO is played or on attack, Ian is generally going to call 3. And once again, as he attacks into Crafty Smuggler, removing Crafty's shield, Ian calls 3 and gets a wing leader off the top. So Ian is 2 for 2 with C3PO here in Game 1. Some great card advantage. And Gene is going to use the epic action on Tarkentown to deal 3 damage to the damaged C3PO. So C3PO off the field. And now the action back on Ian. We know he has multiple 3-cost units, but he is going to play one we haven't seen yet, Rogue Operative. And Gene is going to deal 2 damage to Ian's base with Crafty Smuggler. And then Gene follows up with a 3-cost unit of his own, 7th Fleet Defender in the Space Arena. Both of these decks are very tempo-oriented. The Han Yellow deck has a ton of bounce effects, where it is able to bounce units back to the opposing player's hand. And then the Jango deck has plenty of ways to exhaust the opposing units and get tempo through Jango's effect. So starting out here in this next round, Ian is going to play Spark of Rebellion, and he is going to discard arguably the most important card in this Jango deck. Triple Dark Raid gets discarded. So it is a very big hit for Ian early in Game 1 with that Spark of Rebellion. The action back over to Gene. And now Gene is going to play Surprise Strike. And Crafty Smuggler is going to attack into Ian's base for 5 damage. 7 damage on Ian's base now. So Gene taking the aggressor role early in Game 1. The Rogue Operative is going to attack and defeat the Crafty Smuggler. Just 2 damage back on Rogue Operative. So Rogue Operative still on the table. And Gene is going to get in for another 3 damage as he attacks with the 7th Fleet Defender. So Gene a third of the way there with damage on Ian's base, the standard 30 HP base. So Ian has 20 HP remaining. And Ian is going to play his second copy of C3PO here in Game 1. This time, he does not get a hit from C3PO. So Ian is 2 for 3. And then Gene follows up with a ground unit as well. He plays Greedo. Ian will start this round with the initiative. We have not seen Ian use the Han action ability yet here in Game 1. And to start with his first action of the round, he is going to attack and defeat Greedo with C3PO. Once again, a miss off of C3PO. So the shooting percentage for C3PO, 50% now here in Game 1. And Greedo's when defeated ability, Gene discards Kylo's TIE Silencer off the top. That does not allow Gene to deal any damage to those ground units that Ian has, but Kylo's TIE Silencer being discarded. Gene is actually able to play it from the discard pile. And then we see Ian playing his first space unit of game one. Wing Leader comes in, giving the Rogue Operative 2 experience tokens. So that Rogue Operative will now attack for 6. Gene attacks Ian's base for 3 with 7th Fleet Defender. And now we will see Ian use the Han action ability for the first time, going to 6 total resources. Gene plays a second copy of Greedo, and Ian is going to deploy Han Solo. And Gene will deploy his leader as well, so it doesn't look like Gene had a way to exhaust either the Rogue Operative or Han Solo. And look at this, Ian is going to smuggle in the Hotshot Blaster onto Rogue Operative. Rogue Operative 6 total power, and then with the Raid 2 attacks for 8. So with one action, Ian able to attack and defeat Jango Fett before Gene was able to even get in one attack with Jango. Gene has just claimed the initiative, and now with the action on Ian, he has Han Solo ready, and right now he's deciding whether or not he wants to attack and defeat Greedo or go into Gene's base. And he is going to attack Greedo with Han Solo. Greedo defeated. And once again, the when defeated trigger. Gene discarding the top card of his deck. It is not a non-unit card, so he does not have the ability to deal 2 damage to one of Ian's ground units. So Greedo has missed both times here in this first game. Gene does have the initiative and has dealt 13 damage to Ian's base, but right now Ian has a very nice board presence and is showing quite a bit of damage just in the ground arena. Ian also has the Wing Leader in the space arena, which is threatening that Kylo's TIE Silencer. And Gene is going to continue to be aggressive. 7th Fleet Defender attacking Ian's base for 3. And now Ian is going to play Kira. Taking a look at Gene's hand, we see Fett's Fire Spray and Daring Raid. Ian names Fett's Fire Spray, which means with Kira on the board, Fett's Fire Spray will cost Gene 9. So Gene will not be able to play the Fett's Fire Spray here in this round. Gene does deal another 3 damage to Ian's base, or actually it looks like he may take back this action here. He is going to play Daring Raid instead, dealing 2 damage to Rogue Operative, and that defeats the Rogue Operative. So that is a big threat off of Ian's side of the board. Great sportsmanship from Ian there, letting Gene change the play. The board state hadn't really changed, and there was no new information for either player after the original play. And so you love to see great sportsmanship like that. Ian's next action, he is now going to defeat that Kylo's TIE Silencer with Wing Leader. Both units defeated. Gene just claims the initiative because Fett's Fire Spray is that last card in hand, and he can't play it with Kira on the board. Ian does get into Gene's base for the first time here in game 1. 4 damage with Han Solo, and then we see Millennium Falcon coming in, attacking into the 7th Fleet Defender, removing the shield token. 3 damage back onto Falcon, and then C-3PO getting in for 1 damage to Gene's base, and a hit once again, calling 3. Ian gets waylay off the top. C-3PO has gained Ian an extra 3 cards here in this first game. Ian does pay the Millennium Falcon tax with the resource that is defeated off of the Han Solo ability. Gene with the first action of the round. Ian has a commanding board presence. Gene is now going to get another 3 damage to Ian's base, so 19 damage on. Ian is showing, he was showing 11 damage, but now a second hotshot blaster smuggled in onto Han. Han is going to attack Gene's base for 6, bringing the damage total up to 11. Ian gets another ready resource off the top of his deck. Gene is going to play Cartel Spacer, and because he has another Cunning unit in play, he is able to exhaust a unit with 4 less. He exhausts Millennium Falcon, and then Kira deals another 3 damage to Gene's base, 14 damage on Gene's base. Both players with just 11 HP remaining. Gene will claim the initiative, and Ian will play a wing leader for the second time in game 1. C3PO getting the 2 experience tokens. C3PO attacking Gene's base for 3, and it's another hit for C3PO as Ian called 3 and found a DJ on top. So that is 4 extra cards that Ian has gained from C3PO here in the first game of this match. Gene has the initiative, but just 8 HP remaining on his base. And Ian has more than enough damage on board to deal fatal. So we'll see if Gene has any response to this current situation that Ian has presented him. Gene still needs to deal 11 damage as well. And really the most that he could do in one action is 6 damage with a surprise strike on 7th Fleet Defender. I guess theoretically double surprise strike on his 2 units would be enough to win the game, but if he plays a surprise strike with his first action, there's a good chance that Ian would remove that Cartel Spacer with the Millennium Falcon. Falcon once again stays in play, and Gene is going to play the 7-cost Cad Bane unit, and he will get to capture up to 3 enemy units with a total of 8 HP or less remaining. So we'll see which units Gene decides to capture. He is going to capture Millennium Falcon, Wing Leader, and C3PO. Now the problem for Gene is Ian is still showing fatal on board with Kira and Han. So Ian is going to play Cunning, exhaust both the Cartel Spacer and 7th Fleet Defender, and Han Solo is going to get +4 power, which means Han can win the game by himself. He would attack for a total of 10. Between the 4 power Cunning gave him and Hotshot Blaster. The next action is on Gene, and I don't believe he has a way to exhaust Han Solo. He does not. That is going to do it for game 1. Ian off to a great start as he takes the early lead at SCG CON Atlanta. We are ready for game 2. Ian versus Gene, a Han Solo versus Jango Fett showdown here at the feature table in round 2 of the 2K tournament at SCG CON Atlanta. If you have not done so yet, be sure to check out Laser Gaming. The link to their store will be down in the description below. They make some of the very best tokens for Star Wars Unlimited. They also have a ton of other great products as well. You can put in code NEXTGENGAMING at checkout to get 5% off all of their Star Wars Unlimited products through the end of next month and take your gameplay experience to the next level. So here in game 2, Gene will start with the initiative, and he will play the exact same unit on turn 1 as he did in game 1. We see Crafty Smuggler coming out, and Ian will use the Han Solo action ability much earlier here in game 2. Gene has claimed the initiative, and Ian playing a 3-drop on turn 1. DJ coming out. Now, not the greatest use of DJ. Ian would love to be smuggling DJ into play, but in this spot, just a 3-5 body in the ground arena. Ian does have to defeat a resource. We see the resource defeated was Wing Leader. The Han Solo action ability does give you an extra resource to use on that current turn, but then you do have to defeat a resource at the start of the next action phase. So now Gene with the initiative. Gene is going to attack into Ian's base with Crafty Smuggler. And Ian is going to attack the Crafty Smuggler with DJ. So 2 damage back onto DJ. The Crafty Smuggler's shield is removed. It looks like both players are sticking to the same role they played in the first game. Gene starting out being the aggressor early, and Ian taking the more controlling role. Gene playing the Kylo's TIE Silencer here on turn 2, and Ian once again using the Han Solo action ability. And Gene is going to go ahead and use the epic action on Tarkin Town, dealing 3 damage to DJ. So DJ is defeated, and Ian is going to play Azatuk Liberator Gunship. Comes in, ambushes the Kylo's TIE Silencer, defeating the Silencer, but then Gene responds with Daring Raid to defeat the gunship. So Ian bringing the gunship out of the sideboard for game 2, bringing an effective trade as it took out the Kylo's TIE Silencer, but then Gene having the response to clear up that space arena with Daring Raid. Ian with the initiative here in this round. He will start with Bodhi Rook. And Bodhi Rook is going to discard a non-unit card from Gene's hand. We see Ian having Gene discard the No Good To Me Dead. And Gene is going to attack with Crafty Smuggler. Another 2 damage to Ian's base. Ian claims the initiative. And it will not be the most optimal play for Gene, but he certainly wants to keep pressure on the board. He will play the Imperial Interceptor. So in back-to-back games, Ian able to have an effective discard. We saw Spark of Rebellion hit the triple Dark Raid in the first game, and then here in game 2, Bodhi Rook hitting No Good To Me Dead. And No Good To Me Dead is a fantastic card against Han Solo. You can lock him down for a couple rounds and keep the Han player from getting that extra resource. Now starting out in this round, Bodhi Rook attacks and defeats the Crafty Smuggler. And then Gene gets in for another 3 damage to Ian's base with the Imperial Interceptor. Now the action back over to Ian. It appears as though Ian only has 2 cards in hand. He has used that Han action ability twice already, so he has been burning through some cards, but Gene is in that same spot because he only has 2 cards in hand. So Ian passes here. Gene deploys Jango Fett, and Ian is going to play Cunning, exhausting Jango Fett, and he is going to have Gene discard one of those 2 cards. We'll see what he gets here, if it's another big hit. And it's Ruthless Raider. That is a fantastic hit for Ian. You know that Gene would have loved to play that Ruthless Raider next round. But now the Ruthless Raider taken out. But look at Gene's other card. It was triple Dark Raid. So Gene will have a chance to find another Ruthless Raider. Gene will search the top 7 cards of his deck for a vehicle and play it. Let's see if he can find a Ruthless Raider. He does not, but he finds the other big threat, Fett's Fire Spray. Now he will have to pay 1 for the Fett's Fire Spray. Triple Dark Raid reduces the unit's cost by 5. Ian just claims the initiative, and Gene will attack into Ian's base for 5 with Fett's Fire Spray, bringing the damage total up to 12. The Fett's Fire Spray does get returned to Gene's hand. So to start this round, Ian facing down at least 6 more damage, and the Fett's Fire Spray threatening another 5 damage. We'll see what Ian starts with here in this round. He's got another copy of Cunning. He will exhaust both of Gene's units on board, and he is going to try and discard that 6-cost threat. This time, he discards another Ruthless Raider. That is back-to-back turns that Ian has discarded Ruthless Raider off of Cunning. And Gene drew into another triple Dark Raid. So he resourced the Fett's Fire Spray after drawing triple Dark Raid and Ruthless Raider. Can Gene find one of the other big 6-cost space units? Yes, he can. He finds the third and final Ruthless Raider. Ruthless Raider comes in, enters play ready, dealing 2 more damage to Ian's base and 2 damage to Bodhi Rook. So Bodhi defeated. Ian deploys Han Solo, and Gene is going to attack into Ian's base, dealing another 4 damage. 18 damage on Ian's base. What a couple turns for Gene. Ian was hoping those discards would be enough, but Gene drawing into more gas and getting the third Ruthless Raider. Absolutely fantastic stuff. So now Ian with just 12 HP remaining. Han Solo is ready. But Han by himself cannot defeat the 7 HP Jango Fett. So this is definitely a tough spot for Ian, because Gene is showing at least another 6 damage next round with the Interceptor and Jango Fett, and then playing the Ruthless Raider next round, he would deal at least another 2. So that would be possibly 8 damage, and would leave Ian with just 4 HP remaining. Now Ian has 1 card in his hand, 2 ready resources, so theoretically he can go up to 3 ready resources with a Han Solo attack. We'll see if that's what he decides to do. It's just a very tough spot. He is going to attack into Jango, so some damage traded between both leader units. Ian gets a 3rd ready resource. Gene claims the initiative, and Ian will play a Fleet Lieutenant, not getting the full value here because he did not have any ready Rebel units to attack with, but he does get a 3/3 in the ground arena that poses a threat to Jango Fett. Again, Gene with the initiative. We'll see how he starts this round. Jango Fett could be defeated by either one of Ian's ground units, so we'll see if Gene attacks with Jango first, guaranteeing that 3 damage. Because right now it is full-on race mode for Gene, as he just needs to find another 12 damage, and Gene has yet to take any damage on his base here in this game. So Gene is going to start with Ruthless Raider, 2 damage to Ian's base, and he is going to deal 2 damage to, I believe, Han Solo, which will exhaust Han. Han has just 1 HP remaining. Now this does open the door for Ian to take out Jango Fett, so Fleet Lieutenant attacking into Jango, both units defeated. Now the action back on Gene. He will deal another 3 damage to Ian's base, so 23 damage on. Ian with just 1 card remaining in hand. Now we'll see, what is that card in hand, or does he have any meaningful cards to smuggle into play? He does have 7 total resources. Can Ian figure out a way to stabilize and close out this match here in game 2? Ian is going to play Infus Nest, which is going to bounce the Imperial Interceptor back to Gene's hand, because the Imperial Interceptor has less power than Infus Nest. Now Gene was able to claim the initiative, so with his first action, he could get in for a minimum of 4 damage with the Ruthless Raider. If Gene has a surprise strike, he could actually win the game with his first action here on this turn. We'll see what all Gene has available to him in hand. Gene also having 7 resources available. And Gene is going to go ahead and get in with Ruthless Raider. 4 damage to Ian's base, just 3 HP remaining. The action back on Ian. He is going to smuggle Tech into play. Does Gene have another way to deal 3 more damage here in this round? Gene plays sneak attack. He is going to sneak in the Elite P-38 Starfighter. That deals a damage to Infus Nest, which allows Gene to exhaust the Infus Nest with Jango's ability, and that is huge because now the Infus Nest can attack and bounce that ready P-38 Starfighter back to Gene's hand. Ian has a Cantina Bouncer in hand, but only 4 ready resources. That will do it here in Game 2. Gene with a decisive victory, and he will force a Game 3 at SCG CON Atlanta. We are getting ready for Game 3 here in the Round 2 feature match at the Saturday 2K at SCG CON Atlanta. Before we get started with this match, I want to say thank you so much to everyone for all of the support here on the channel, but a big thank you to all of the Patreon supporters. Thank you guys so much for helping me grow the channel and continue to make this content. If you want to support the channel, be sure to check out the Patreon. The link will be down in the description below. And by joining the Patreon, you can get access to some very cool benefits like being able to submit your own gameplay footage to be fully edited and have play-by-play commentary on it, just as all of the gameplay videos here on the channel, as well as some other great features. But the players are just about ready. Ian versus Gene, Han versus Jango. Ian with the initiative here in the final game. He will play C-3PO, and it is a miss with the first C-3PO trigger in Game 3. And then Gene is going to play Bazine for the first time in this match. Bazine coming out of the sideboard. Taking a look at Ian's hand, we see Spark of Rebellion, Bodhi Rook, and Cantina Bouncer. That is quite the hand disruption package for Ian. And Gene is going to have Ian discard Spark of Rebellion, and he drew right back into Spark of Rebellion. And because Gene said that's probably what he drew, Ian had to show it. So Ian has given all of us, including Gene, that information. So he's still holding on to Spark of Rebellion. Now that is the one downside to Bazine. She forces your opponent to discard a card, but they do get to draw a card, so they could always draw right back into that card you wanted to get rid of, and that is what happened this time around. Ian will start with the initiative. He is going to attack Gene's base for 1 with C-3PO, and it's a hit this time, so C-3PO 1 for 2, 50% conversion rate here in Game 3, as Ian gets the 3-cost unit Tech. And for the first time in this match, Ian striking first in terms of damage to the base. And then we see Gene playing the Elite P-38 Starfighter, 1 damage to C-3PO. And Ian playing the Bodhi Rook that we saw in Ian's hand last round. And once again, having Gene discard a no good to me dead, keeping Han from being locked down for multiple rounds. And then Gene is going to attack into Ian's base with Bazine, 1 damage. Ian claims the initiative, and Gene using that epic action on Tarkin Town pretty early here again, defeating the C-3PO. C-3PO had 1 damage on. Tarkin Town deals the final 3 damage needed to defeat it, as Gene knows that C-3PO just potentially getting way too much value. And Ian is going to play the Spark of Rebellion. Taking a look at Gene's hand, we see Heavy Persuader Tank, Cartel Spacer, and Surprise Strike. And Ian deciding which of those 3 cards he will have Gene discard. It is going to be Cartel Spacer, taking out an immediate play for Gene. He could have played that Cartel Spacer and exhausted Bodie Rook. But now Gene left with the decision here. He does have Surprise Strike in hand. He could deal some extra damage with an attack with either Bazine or Elite P-38 Starfighter. Now, Gene does have to keep in mind that Bodie Rook could take out Bazine right away. So Gene is going to attack into Ian's base with Bazine, 1 damage. And then Ian is going to use the Han Solo action ability, getting an extra ready resource here. Gene deals another 3 damage to Ian's base with the P-38 Starfighter. And with that 3rd ready resource that Ian got off the Han action ability, he plays Rogue Operative. And now the action back on Gene. And I think Gene is contemplating the Heavy Persuader Tank here, and it looks like that is what he's going to do. So he can actually use the Exploit 2. He can defeat both of his units to pay 4 less resources in total for Heavy Persuader Tank. So the tank costs 3. The when defeated ability on P-38 Starfighter, dealing 1 damage to Bodie Rook. And then the Heavy Persuader Tank, the when played ability, also dealing 2 damage to Bodie Rook. So Bodie defeated. Ian has claimed the initiative. But now Gene just has that 1 unit on his side of the board after defeating both Bazine and the P-38 Starfighter. With Ian having the initiative, we'll see if he has a quick answer to the Heavy Persuader Tank. I do believe earlier in the game he had a Cantina Bouncer in hand. When Gene played the Bazine, I do believe we saw a Cantina Bouncer. So that could be an option for Ian with his first action. Just put that Heavy Persuader Tank right back in Gene's hand, and that is exactly what Ian does. He did have the Cantina Bouncer in hand. Heavy Persuader Tank is bounced back to Gene's hand, and that is a big tempo swing for Ian. Gene does play ISB Agent, revealing an event from his hand. 1 damage to Rogue Operative. The Rogue Operative will be exhausted off of the Jango Fett ability. Now the action back over to Ian. He does not have any resources ready, but he could use that Han action ability here to deploy Han Solo this round, because he would go up to 6 total resources, which is what he needs to deploy Han. So that is what he's thinking about. It's either claim the initiative or go up to 6 resources, very likely then deploying Han on the next action. We know that Gene has a Surprise Strike in hand. So Gene could deploy Jango on his next action. And if Han was deployed, Gene could take out Han with 1 action using Surprise Strike on Jango. So Ian does use the Han action ability, going up to 6 resources. Gene does go ahead and deploy Jango Fett, and Ian immediately deploys Han Solo. And there is the Surprise Strike from Gene. Jango attacks and defeats Han Solo. That does allow Ian to claim the initiative. And Jango took 4 damage back from Han, which means Ian has the option to defeat Jango right away with that Cantina Bouncer. And the Cantina Bouncer would remain on the field. So some good back and forth play here early in game 3. Gene has been able to deal more damage to Ian's base thus far, but does have less remaining HP, with Gene running the 25 HP base. So starting out here in this round, Ian making great use of the Cantina Bouncer, attacking and defeating Jango TT. The Cantina Bouncer left with 2 HP remaining. Now the action back over to Gene. He has 6 resources. Does he have any one of those big space units that he can put out on the board? Maybe a Fet's Fire Spray or Ruthless Raider, or does he have a triple Dark Raid? It doesn't look like he has either one of those in hand. I believe Gene only has 2 cards in hand, one of still being the Heavy Persuader tank. The Heavy Persuader tank can deal 2 damage when played, so that could defeat the Cantina Bouncer. So now Gene may be contemplating whether or not he wants to exploit the ISB agent to go ahead and play the Persuader tank, but it looks like he is going to go ahead and attack with the ISB agent first. 1 damage to the Rogue Operative, 2 damage back on the ISB agent, and Ian is going to play Wing Leader, buffing up the Rogue Operative with 2 experience tokens. So momentarily, Gene had just 2 HP remaining on both of those ground units, but the Wing Leader changes that. Gene plays No Good to Me Dead, exhausting the Rogue Operative. Rogue Operative will also remain exhausted here on this next turn. Ian just claims the initiative following the No Good to Me Dead. And right now, Ian with a very commanding board presence. Ian has 3 units on his side of the table to Gene's 1 unit, and that 1 unit just ISB agent, not very threatening. Now, the ISB agent can always exhaust a unit by dealing that 1 damage, and then the Jango TT ability. Ian does start the round with an attack onto Gene's base. 3 damage with the Cantina Bouncer. Now both of Ian's units in the ground arena are exhausted, so the ISB agent will not be used to exhaust any units here in this round. Gene has went up to 7 resources, and he is going to use all of them to play Cad Bane, and that is going to allow Gene to capture all 3 of Ian's units. A great tempo swinging play for Gene as he takes over board control. Ian does have all of his resources ready, and he is going to smuggle Tech into play. Now that is certainly very dangerous. Tech giving Ian all kinds of options from the resource row. Gene just claimed the initiative. Let's see if he has a response to Tech, or potentially if he decides to be aggressive. Gene knows that Ian has plenty of ways to bounce units back to his hand, so you could see Gene maybe want to attack with Cad Bane first before it potentially gets bounced. And with Gene's first action, he is going to attack with Cad Bane, and I believe he is going to attack into Ian's base. That will put the damage total on Ian's base up to 12. Ian does have the option to rescue one of those captured units under Cad Bane here. Now that would allow Gene to draw 2 cards. And I believe Ian has chosen not to rescue any units. So that does not allow Gene to draw 2 cards. The action will be back over to Ian. 12 damage on Ian's base, 4 damage on Gene's base. And it looks like Ian is going to use Tech with his first action of the round, defeating the ISB agent. So 1 damage back onto Tech, 4 HP remaining. What does Gene have here in this round? We know that he still has the heavy Persuader tank in his hand, or it appears that is the tank still in hand. And Gene is going to play sneak attack here, sneaking in the heavy Persuader tank. He pays 3 less for the heavy Persuader tank, so a total of 6 resources spent, 2 damage dealt to Tech. Heavy Persuader tank is ready. Gene is threatening more damage, but Ian has Cunning. Ian exhausts the heavy Persuader tank with Cunning and has Gene discard the last card in hand. Gene claims the initiative, and there's the waylay, bouncing Cad Bane back to Gene's hand. Ian gets all 3 units back, and all of the momentum now on Ian's side. What a turn for Ian. Gene tried to be aggressive. He was hoping to, if nothing else, get at least 6 more damage into base with the heavy Persuader tank. He could have also cleared Tech off the board, but the tank was exhausted. And then the bounce effect that we were talking about, getting those units back. Now Gene with the initiative, still having 7 resources. Cad Bane still in hand. Cad is going to come back into play. Once again, capturing 3 units. This time it's the Rogue Operative, Tech, and Wing Leader. Now let's see how Ian responds to Cad Bane this time. He will play another copy of Cunning, giving Cantina Bouncer +4 power, and he will have Gene discard one of those 2 cards in hand. Gene discards a Surprise Strike. And now the action back over to Gene. I think he can only claim the initiative here. All of his resources are exhausted. So Ian, after Gene claims, is going to attack and defeat Cad Bane with the Cantina Bouncer. Ian will get all 3 of those units captured back, and once again has complete board control. 3 units to Gene's no units. And Ian has answered Cad Bane this time by defeating him, so we know that unless Gene draws into another Cad, we won't be seeing him next round. And Ian is going to further that board presence by smuggling Wing Leader into play, giving 2 experience tokens to the Rogue Operative. The first action will be on Gene, but right now Ian has all the momentum, and this is a super tough spot for Gene. He is going to start the round with ISB Agent, revealing an event, dealing 1 damage to Rogue Operative. Jango exhausts the Rogue Operative. That will certainly mitigate a chunk of damage that was very likely going to be headed for Gene's base. And Ian is going to once again take advantage of Tech being in play. He smuggles in Bodhi Rook, and look at this, he discards Triple Dark Raid. That is a huge discard. Triple Dark Raid would have been one of those good options, maybe try and find a Ruthless Raider to help stabilize this board. But Triple Dark Raid discarded. Gene playing the last card in hand, playing Daring Raid, dealing an extra 2 damage to Ian's base. And now, with nothing left Gene can do, Ian playing the Millennium Falcon and attacking Gene's base for 9. What a momentum swinging turn once again for Ian. And now we are staring at a monstrosity of a board, 6 total units. He's got 3 in the ground arena, 3 in the space arena. Gene just has 12 HP remaining on his base. And even though there are plenty of options with this deck to exhaust at least 1 unit per turn with Jango's ability, that will just not be enough. And this Jango deck does not have any kind of board wipe or mass removal effect. So Gene will open up with No Good To Me Dead, exhausting the Rogue Operative. That will save some damage here in this round. Ian had to pay the 1 resource to keep Falcon in play, and Ian is going to play Spark of Rebellion, discarding the final card in Gene's hand. It was Daring Raid. Now once again, Gene has no cards in hand. He is going to attack Bodhi Rook with ISB Agent, exhausting Bodhi Rook with Jango's ability. And now Ian plays Surprise Strike. He will attack into Gene's base for 5 with Tech, putting the damage total up to 18. Gene has nothing left he can do, and Ian still has 7 damage coming through in the space arena. That is going to do it here in Game 3. What a match. It goes the distance, but the former SCG CON champion, Ian, will remain undefeated at the Saturday 2K at SCG CON Atlanta. Thank you so much to everyone for tuning in. Stay tuned for more coverage from the Saturday 2K at SCG CON Atlanta. May the force be with you, and until next time, take care.